If you're watching this right now, heaven has sent a warning, a final one. You don't have hours. You don't have weeks. You have moments. And if you miss it, it may cost you your destiny. Have you been feeling unrest in your sleep, like something's clawing at your spirit in the 3 a.m. darkness? Has your soul been agitated while everyone else seems at peace, scrolling through their phones, living their little lives like nothing's wrong? Do you feel like you're living in slow motion, like something massive is coming but no one's talking about it? Listen to me carefully. You weren't led here by accident. This isn't another inspirational video. This is divine intervention. For 70 years, there was a technicheia, sacred method of connection that was forbidden, locked away, too powerful, too dangerous for unprepared hearts. But something has shifted in the heavenly realm. The seals are breaking, the veil is tearing, and what was once banned is now your only hope. This is the secret hell prayed you'd never remember. But heaven has now authorized it. You felt it, haven't you? That gnawing emptiness that success couldn't fill. That ache in your chest when you look at your life and wonder, is this all there is? The sleepless nights, the anxiety that medicine can't touch, the feeling that you're meant for something greater, but the door keeps slamming shut. The world told you it was normal. Your family said it was stress. But your spirit knew better. You're not broken. You're not forgotten. You're awakening. And awakening hurts. Place both hands over your eyes right now and whisper, I am one with God. Go ahead. Do it. If you feel chills when I say this, if electricity runs down your spine, it's because your soul remembers. Your spirit recognizes the frequency of home. You are not random. You are remnant. You are chosen. And what I'm about to reveal could save not just your sanity, but your very soul. The strikes are coming spiritual, emotional, generational, and only those who know this ancient method will remain standing. Thank you to every single one of you who has supported this message through super thanks. Your generosity means more than you know. You're not just donating, you're helping spread light to others who feel alone in their calling. Whether you give or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here, your support, your time, your attention. It all matters. Comment, I'm awake right now, if your spirit feels the fire. Don't wait. Your delay is hell's delight, because what I'm about to share changes everything. Are you ready to remember who you really are? Why do you think Moses hid his face after encountering God on Mount Sinai? Why did the disciples fall to the ground when they witnessed the transfiguration? Why did every prophet throughout history speak of a technique so sacred, so powerful, that it could only be whispered in the shadows of eternity? Because they knew something we forgot. For over 2,000 years, there has been a method of divine connection so immediate, so transformative, that heaven itself placed it under lock and key. Not because God wanted to withhold it from his children, but because humanity wasn't ready for its power. The technique was too raw, too direct, too dangerous for hearts polluted by the world's noise. But something has changed. The seals are breaking, the ancient doors are creaking open, and what was once forbidden is now your lifeline. You see, dear one, you've been searching for God in all the wrong places. You've begged him to speak louder while sitting in sanctuaries filled with distractions. You've pleaded for his presence while your eyes feast on 1,000 earthly images every single day. You've cried out for breakthrough while your spirit suffocates under layers of religious performance and spiritual entertainment. But God doesn't compete with noise. He doesn't shout over chaos. He whispers. And his whisper requires something the modern world has forgotten how to give: complete, undivided attention. The prophets knew this secret. Elijah discovered it not in the earthquake, not in the fire, but in the still, small voice that came only after he covered his face. Isaiah glimpsed it when he cried, "Woe is me, for I am undone," because he had seen the Lord with unclouded eyes. Even Jesus himself withdrew from the crowds, covered his face in prayer, and emerged with power that made demons tremble. They understood what we've lost, that the pathway to divine encounter isn't through more activity, but through sacred stillness. Not through louder prayers, but through covered eyes that shut out every earthly distraction. Think of Moses' staff, ordinary wood in his hand, yet when aligned with God's purpose, it split seas, brought water from rocks, and commanded plagues to fall. The power wasn't in the staff, it was in the connection. The staff was simply the physical bridge between heaven's authority and earth's need. Your hands, dear chosen one, are no different. For centuries, this technique was sealed because the world wasn't desperate enough. Humanity still believed it could save itself through knowledge, through technology, through human wisdom. But look around you now. Do you see the fruit of man's wisdom? The anxiety epidemic, the depression plague, the spiritual famine disguised as material abundance. The suicide rates among your generation have tripled in the last decade. Prescription drugs for mental anguish are flowing like water. Families are fracturing. Faith is dying. And the church, God forgive you, has become more concerned with entertainment than with encounter. This is why heaven has unsealed what was hidden. Because you need it now. Because your soul is starving in a land of plenty. Because the strikes are coming not just to economies or nations, but to the very foundation of human sanity. And only those who remember how to truly connect with their Creator will survive the spiritual tsunami ahead. Listen carefully to what I'm about to reveal. Because this isn't theory, this isn't philosophy, this is survival. The technique that every prophet knew, that every genuine mystic practiced, that every true encounter with God required, was this simple, this profound, the complete surrender of earthly sight to receive heavenly vision. It was never about candles, crystals, or chants. It was never about rituals, repetitions, or religious gymnastics. Just this, 2 hands gently placed over the eyes, shutting out every earthly image, every distraction, every lie the world has painted on your vision, and the whisper that realigns your soul with the Creator. I am one with God. 5 words that have the power to shatter every barrier between heaven and your heart. 5 words that bypass every religious system, every denominational wall, every human interpretation, and connect you directly to the source. When you place your hands over your eyes and speak these words, you're not performing a ritual. You're remembering who you are. You're accessing the frequency your soul was designed to operate on. You're stepping out of time and into eternity, where God speaks not in thunder, but in the language your spirit recognizes as home. The disciples experienced this on the Mount of Transfiguration when they fell on their faces, overwhelmed by divine presence. Paul encountered this on the Damascus Road, when he was struck blind to earthly sight but given heavenly vision. John received this on Patmos, when he fell as dead before the risen Christ, then arose with revelation that would shake nations. Every genuine encounter with the living God requires the same surrender, the willingness to close your eyes to earth so heaven can open your spiritual vision. But here's what hell doesn't want you to know. This technique doesn't just bring comfort. It brings power, real power. The kind that breaks generational curses, that shifts circumstances, that downloads divine strategies directly into your spirit. When you align with God at this level, you don't just feel better, you become dangerous to every force of darkness that has held your family, your finances, your future in bondage. This is why the enemy has worked so hard to keep you distracted, to keep your eyes glued to screens, to keep your mind spinning with 1,000 earthly concerns. Because he knows that if you ever discover the simplicity and power of this ancient method, his hold on your life is finished. If you feel this awakening, if your spirit is recognizing truth your mind has forgotten, comment 99 right now to align with what's being released. Because what I'm about to share next will change not just how you pray, but how you live. The question is, are you ready to see with the eyes of your spirit? Why do you wake up at 3 a.m. with dread crawling up your spine? Why does peace feel like a foreign language in your own home? Why does your body ache in places medicine can't reach, places that throb with an exhaustion that sleep can't cure? You've been telling yourself it's age. You've been accepting it as normal. But what if I told you that the weight crushing your chest isn't time, it's warfare? Listen carefully, because what I'm about to reveal will shatter every lie you've been fed about your pain. You're not broken. You're under siege. Your peace has been intercepted. Not by life, but by spiritual warfare, so subtle, so calculated, that most never recognize the attack. For decades, you've carried burdens that weren't yours to bear, anxiety that springs from nowhere, depression that medicine can't touch, a restlessness that no vacation can cure. The world calls it mental health, doctors call it stress, family calls it getting older, but your spirit knows better. The Apostle Paul warned us in Ephesians 6:12, "For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world. Paul wasn't speaking metaphorically. He was issuing a military briefing. Because there is a war invisible, relentless, targeted, and you are the battlefield. You feel it most in the quiet moments, don't you? When the house is still and your mind should be at rest, that's when the assault intensifies. Thoughts that aren't your thoughts. Fears that make no logical sense. A heaviness that settles on your soul like fog rolling in from a dark sea. But here's what they don't want you to know. Your sensitivity isn't weakness. It's recognition. Your spirit is trying to survive without its shield. Think about it. When did you last feel truly protected? When did you last experience that deep, bone-deep peace that passes understanding? If you're honest, really honest, it's been years, hasn't it? Maybe decades. Because somewhere along the way, you lost access to your spiritual armor. You forgot the frequency of heaven. The enemy doesn't attack the spiritually dead. He attacks the chosen. He attacks those who carry light, even when they don't realize it. That restlessness you feel, that's your spirit, recognizing it was made for more than survival mode. That ache in your chest, that's your soul crying out for its source. And the loneliness, oh, the crushing loneliness that follows you even in crowded rooms. That's not social isolation, that's spiritual starvation. Your soul is homesick for a home it's never seen but somehow remembers. You've tried everything, haven't you? Therapy, medication, hobbies, relationships, religion. But nothing touches the core wound. Nothing fills the God-shaped void. Because you can't heal a spiritual wound with physical remedies. You can't cure soul sickness with earthbound solutions. David understood this torment. In Psalm 42-11, he cried out, "Why are you downcast, O my soul? Why so disturbed within me?" Even the man after God's own heart felt the weight of spiritual warfare. Even he knew the agony of a spirit under attack. But David also knew the solution. He knew the secret that heaven has now authorized for this generation: direct connection, unfiltered access, the ancient pathway back to source. Here's what's really happening to you. Your spiritual immune system has been compromised. The natural defense God built into your spirit has been systematically dismantled by a world that profits from your confusion. They've convinced you that the supernatural is superstition. They've made you ashamed of your sensitivity. They've taught you to medicate what God intended you to activate. But sensitivity is not a disorder. It's a superpower. It means you can sense what others miss. It means your spirit is still alive when theirs have gone numb. It means you're picking up signals from realms most can't even imagine. The war you feel in your soul is not weakness. It's your spirit trying to survive without its shield. Every sleepless night is evidence. Every unexplained anxiety is proof. Every moment you've wondered if you're losing your mind, that's your spirit fighting for its life against forces that want you spiritually blind, spiritually deaf, spiritually powerless. They want you medicated, not meditated. They want you distracted, not connected. They want you surviving, not thriving. Because a chosen one who knows their power is a threat to every system built on your smallness. But heaven hasn't abandoned you. Even now, even in the thick of this battle, there's a lifeline being extended, a way back to the frequency you were born to carry. A method so simple, so immediate, that hell spent centuries keeping it hidden. Cover your eyes, right now. Shut out the physical light and let your spirit see. Place both hands gently over your eyes and whisper these 4 words: I am one with God. You don't need to understand it to obey. You don't need theology to access truth. Your spirit remembers the language of heaven even when your mind has forgotten. Feel that? That shift in the atmosphere around you? That's not imagination. That's recognition. That's your soul remembering its native frequency. But this is just the beginning. Because what you've just experienced, that moment of peace, that breath of relief that's proof of what's possible, that's a preview of the power that's been waiting for your return. The question is, will you step fully into this ancient method, or will you return to the battlefield without your armor? Because the strikes are coming, and what you decide in the next few moments could determine whether you survive them or finally thrive through them. Do you feel it? That electric tension crackling through the air like lightning before a thunderstorm? Can you sense the invisible threads of reality beginning to fray, unraveling faster than anyone dares to acknowledge? Are you among the few whose spiritual radar is screaming that we've crossed a linear threshold that humanity was never meant to cross? The veil between heaven and earth isn't just thin anymore, it's shredding, and what's bleeding through is both terrifying and magnificent. Look around you, really look. Mental health facilities overflowing, suicide rates climbing like never before, people walking around like zombies, emotionally flatlined, spiritually bankrupt. The news feeds you fear for breakfast, anxiety for lunch, and despair for dinner. But what they're not telling you is the truth behind the chaos. This isn't just societal breakdown. This is spiritual warfare manifesting in real time. Missiles are falling in the spirit. But heaven has issued one final strategy. The prophet Joel saw this day coming, and it shall come to pass afterward that I will pour out my spirit on all flesh. Your sons and your daughters shall prophesy. Your old men shall dream dreams. Your young men shall see visions. But before the outpouring comes the shaking. Before the glory comes the grinding. You've been feeling it, haven't you? That restlessness. That knowing. Like your soul is trying to break out of a cage it's been trapped in for decades. The world told you to medicate it, ignore it, busy yourself until it went away. But it didn't go away because it wasn't a problem, it was a signal. Your spirit has been receiving downloads from heaven, frequency adjustments, spiritual software updates, and now, finally, you're coming online. But here's what hell doesn't want you to know. You weren't born to survive this storm. You were born to command it. The ancient Hebrews understood something we've forgotten. They knew that in times of great shaking, God raises up a remnant, not the religious, not the perfect, but the responsive. The ones whose hearts are tender enough to hear his whisper above the world's roar. Moses didn't survive Pharaoh's tantrum, she commanded them to stop. David didn't survive Goliath's threat, she silenced them with a stone. Esther didn't survive Haman's plot, she exposed it and saved a nation. Every single one of them had to step through a veil of fear into their divine assignment. That veil is before you right now. You feel it when you close your eyes and place your hands over your face. That electric presence, that knowing, that whisper that says, you're not crazy, you're chosen. The technique I shared with you isn't just meditation, it's activation. It's your access code to heaven's command center. But timing is everything. Windows open and windows close. Jesus said in Matthew 24-22, unless those days were shortened, no flesh would be saved. But for the elect's sake, those days will be shortened. The elect, the chosen, those who respond when heaven calls, those who don't wait for permission to step into their spiritual authority. The countdown isn't measured in years anymore. It's measured in moments. Every day you hesitate is another day the enemy gains ground in your bloodline, your finances, your health, your peace. Every night you go to sleep without activating this divine connection is another night you leave yourself spiritually exposed. But when you step through that veil, when you stop hiding behind excuses and step into the authority God placed in your DNA, everything shifts. The atmosphere around you changes. Your words carry weight. Your prayer pierces dimensions. Your very presence disrupts demonic assignment. This is why you've felt so alone. This is why relationships have been stripped away. This is why comfortable places have become uncomfortable. God has been separating you from everything that would hold you back from this moment. The veil isn't just thin, it's torn. And on the other side is a realm of power, authority, and divine strategy that will make your past struggles look like child's play. Daniel understood this. When the king's decree went out that no one could pray to any god but the king, Daniel didn't hide. He didn't compromise. He opened his windows toward Jerusalem and prayed 3 times a day, as he always had. And when they threw him in the lion's den, the lions became his bodyguards. The den didn't change Daniel. Daniel changed the den. That's your inheritance. Not survival dominion, not endurance authority. Not just making it through, but commanding the storm to be still. But you have to step through the veil. You have to stop playing it safe. You have to activate what God has already placed within you. The technique is simple, but it's not easy. It requires surrender. It demands honesty. It costs you your pride and your need to understand everything before you obey. Place your hands over your eyes. Breathe. Whisper, "I am one with God," and mean it. Not as a religious phrase, but as a declaration of war against every force that has tried to convince you that you're ordinary. You're not ordinary. You're extraordinary. You're not forgotten. You're chosen. And the time to hide that truth is over. Comment, "The veil is thin right now. Let the unseen realm recognize you've heard the trumpet. Let heaven know you're ready to step through. Because what's waiting on the other side will make every tear you've cried, every night you've wrestled with God, every moment you felt misunderstood worth it. The veil is torn. The way is open. Your time is now. But what happens next will require a courage you didn't know you possessed. How many times have you asked God why? Why did the cancer come? Why did they leave? Why did the phone call come at 2 a.m. with news that shattered everything you thought you knew about life? And in those moments, when the tears wouldn't stop and the pain felt like it would split you in half, did you ever wonder if maybe, just maybe, you were supposed to die with them? You've buried people. You've wept alone in hospital corridors while fluorescent lights buzzed overhead like dying angels. You've held hands that went cold. You've spoken to headstones. You've prayed when nothing moved, when heaven felt like brass and your words bounced back empty. But here's what the enemy never wanted you to realize: you're still here. That's not survival. That's divine proof. Listen to me, chosen one. What happened to you wasn't random. The midnight calls, the diagnoses that came out of nowhere, the betrayals that blindsided you, the financial collapses that should have destroyed you, none of it was coincidence. You were in the crosshairs of hell itself. Because something inside you terrified the darkness. Something so powerful, so threatening to the kingdom of shadows, that they had to try to kill it before it awakened. But they failed. Every funeral you attended was supposed to be yours. Every hospital bed was meant to hold your body. Every moment of despair was designed to be your last breath. The enemy threw everything he had at you: disease, depression, divorce, death itself, hoping one of them would stick, hoping one would finally silence the roar he heard coming from your future. You think you're broken? You think you're damaged goods? Let me tell you what hell sees when it looks at you: a walking, breathing miracle, a living, breathing impossibility. You are proof that God's plans cannot be thwarted, no matter how hard they try. Job knew this fire. Though he slay me, yet will I trust in him. 14 chapters of agony, loss, and confusion. His children dead. His wealth gone. His body covered in boils. His wife telling him to curse God and die. But Job understood something that escapes most people: the fire wasn't his enemy. It was his revealer. What was supposed to break you baptized you instead. Think about it. Before the pain, you were soft. Before the loss, you were naive. Before the betrayal, you trusted everyone. But now you can see through lies before they're even spoken. Now you can sense deception from across a room. Now you carry a strength that can't be taught in seminars or learned from books. That strength was forged in fire. That wisdom was carved from suffering. That power was pressed out like oil from olives. The enemy thought he was destroying you, but God was developing you. You know what gold looks like before it hits the furnace? Dull, ordinary, mixed with dirt and rock and worthless material. But when the heat rises to 1,947 degrees Fahrenheit, something miraculous happens. The impurities separate, the dross floats to the surface, and what remains? Pure gold, refined, valuable, unbreakable. The fire didn't burn you, it revealed you. Every tear you cried was liquid gold. Every sleepless night was hammer strikes on an anvil. Every moment you wanted to quit but didn't was another degree of heat that made you purer, stronger, more precious than you ever imagined possible. David understood this process. Psalm 66:10-12. For you, God, tested us. You refined us like silver. You brought us into prison and laid burdens on our backs. You let people ride over our heads. We went through fire and water, but you brought us to a place of abundance. Notice he didn't say God prevented the fire. He said God brought them through it. There's a difference between protection from the storm and power in the storm. You weren't given protection. You were given something better. You were given dominion. Look at your hands right now. Those hands have wiped tears that would have drowned others. Those hands have carried burdens that would have crushed ordinary people. Those hands have signed papers, made decisions, and taken actions that saved not just your life, but the lives of people who may never even thank you for it. You think you're scarred? Those aren't scars. Those are stripes, and by his stripes, we are healed. Your pain has become your credential. Your suffering has become your authority. Your survival has become your sermon. But here's what makes me angry, and you should be angry too. You've been walking around apologizing for being here. You've been making yourself small because others couldn't handle your story. You've been dimming your light because your brightness reminded them of their darkness. You've been whispering when you should be roaring. Stop it. The same fire that was meant to kill you is now your weapon. The same pain that was designed to silence you is now your voice. The same trauma that hell used to try to destroy you is now the very thing that qualifies you to set others free. Jeremiah 1:10 declares, "See, today I appoint you over nations and kingdoms to uproot and tear down, to destroy and overthrow, to build and to plant." You weren't just refined for your own sake. You were refined to refine others. You weren't just delivered to live quietly in a corner. You were delivered to deliver. What was supposed to break you baptized you instead. And now, the fire serves you. Type "I survived fire" if this is your story. Because the world needs to see what impossible looks like. The world needs to witness what happens when heaven decides that hell will not have the final word. Your survival isn't just personal, it's prophetic. It's proof that God's people can walk through anything and come out not just alive, but more alive than ever. But this is only the beginning, because if you survived what should have killed you, imagine what you're equipped to handle next. The strikes that are coming, the ones that will devastate the unprepared, they hold no power over you. You've already been through worse, and you're still standing. The question now isn't whether you'll survive what's coming. The question is, will you finally step into the authority your fire has earned you? Have you ever noticed that the loudest voices in your life are the ones bringing you the least peace? Have you realized that in a world screaming for your attention, God's most powerful communication comes through whispers? Are you beginning to understand that what feels like divine abandonment might actually be heaven's invitation to go deeper? Listen to me, chosen one. You've been conditioned to believe that silence equals emptiness. That if God isn't speaking through burning bushes or parting seas, he must be absent. But that's the enemy's greatest deception, convincing you that noise equals presence and quiet equals abandonment. The truth will shatter everything you thought you knew about divine communication. In 1 Kings 19, when Elijah was running for his life, desperate and broken, God didn't meet him in the earthquake. He didn't show up in the fire. He didn't reveal himself in the mighty wind that tore the mountains apart. He came in what the scripture calls a still small voice, a whisper, so gentle that Elijah had to cover his face and strain to hear it. But here's what they never taught you in Sunday school. That whisper contained more power than all the natural disasters combined. That gentle voice redirected the course of nations. That soft sound became Elijah's shield in the wilderness. You see, the whisper of God is a fortress louder than bombs. Right now, your mind is under siege. Every notification, every news alert, every social media ping is a spiritual missile aimed at your peace. Your nervous system is hijacked. Your soul is scattered across 1,000 different frequencies, and you wonder why you can't hear heaven anymore. But God hasn't stopped speaking. You've just stopped listening. Here's what's happening in the invisible realm while you're drowning in digital noise. Every time you reach for your phone instead of reaching for silence, you're essentially unplugging from God's command center and plugging into man's chaos system. Every time you fill the quiet with entertainment instead of encounter, you're trading divine download for demonic distraction. The enemy knows something that most believers have forgotten. Silence is not emptiness, it's the birthing place of every miracle you've ever witnessed. Moses received the 10 Commandments not in the marketplace, but on the mountain alone, in silence, in the presence of the Almighty. Jesus withdrew to lonely places to pray before every major miracle. Even the creation of the universe began with the Spirit of God hovering over the waters in perfect stillness. But you run from silence like it's punishment instead of embracing it as preparation. Let me ask you something that's going to cut deep. When was the last time you sat in complete silence for more than 5 minutes without reaching for distraction? When did you last create space for God to speak without filling it with your own words, your own agenda, your own anxiety? I'll tell you why that question makes you uncomfortable. Because silence forces you to confront what's really happening inside your heart. It strips away the masks, the performance, the religious activity. In silence, you can't hide from your doubts, your fears, your desperate need for healing, and that terrifies you. But what if I told you that your discomfort with silence is actually proof that you need it most? What if the very thing you're avoiding is the key to everything you've been seeking? Here's the technique heaven has now authorized, the method that was once forbidden because humanity wasn't ready for its power. Every time you place your hands over your eyes, you unplug from man's system and log back into God's command center. This isn't meditation. This isn't some new age practice. This is biblical alignment. When you physically block out the visual chaos of this world, you're following the example of every prophet who ever heard clearly from God. You're creating a sacred space where your spirit can receive what your mind has been too busy to hear. In this silence, something supernatural happens. Your heartbeat slows to match heaven's rhythm. Your thoughts quiet to hear the Father's whisper. Your spirit becomes invisible to enemy radar. The demons that have been tracking your every move through digital surveillance suddenly lose their signal. The anxiety that feeds on constant stimulation begins to starve. The depression that thrives in noise starts to suffocate in sacred stillness. But here's the part that will change everything. In that silence, God doesn't just speak to you, He begins to speak through you. Your prayers become more accurate. Your discernment becomes razor sharp. Your words carry weight they never had before. You stop being a spiritual consumer and become a divine transmitter. Right now, as you're listening to these words, you can feel it stirring inside you, can't you? That recognition, that remembering. Your soul knows this is true because silence was your first language with God before the world taught you to fear it. The strikes are coming, beloved. Spiritual warfare is intensifying. Economic systems are shaking. Mental health crises are exploding. But those who know how to find shelter in divine silence will not just survive, they will thrive in the chaos. Place your hands over your eyes, right now. Don't wait. Don't analyze. Don't let your mind talk you out of what your spirit knows it needs. Whisper, I am one with God. Feel that? That shift in the atmosphere? That sudden peace flooding your nervous system? That's not imagination, that's reactivation. You just accessed what Adam knew before the fall, what Moses carried down from Sinai, what Jesus demonstrated in the wilderness. You just remembered who you really are. But here's the question that will determine whether this moment changes your life or just temporarily comforts it. Will you make this silence your sanctuary, or will you let the noise steal it away again? When did you start believing that your tears were weakness? When did the world convince you that your rage was sin? When did you learn to apologize for feeling deeply when the shallow-hearted called you too much? Listen to me, chosen one. Something sinister happened to your generation. You were taught to silence the very language your soul uses to speak. You were conditioned to numb what God designed to navigate. And tonight, you discover the truth they never wanted you to know. Your emotions aren't your enemy. They are encrypted messages from your soul. But first, let me tell you what they did to you. The world, the system, the culture, even the church convinced you that feeling deeply was dysfunction. They handed you pills for your passion and therapy for your truth-telling. They called your sensitivity a disorder and your intensity an illness. But what if I told you they were wrong? What if I told you they were afraid? Because when a chosen one feels freely, they become dangerous. You see, emotions were never meant to be managed. They were meant to be listened to. Your anxiety isn't a chemical imbalance, it's your spirit detecting spiritual warfare. Your depression isn't a mental illness, it's your soul grieving a world that's lost its way. Your anger isn't unrighteous, it's your heart responding to injustice the way God's heart does. David felt deeply. My tears have been my food day and night, he wrote in Psalm 42. Jesus wept at Lazarus' tomb not because he couldn't raise him, but because he felt the weight of human suffering. Even God himself declares in Genesis 6:6 that it grieved him to his heart when he saw mankind's wickedness. If God grieves, if Jesus weeps, if David cries, then why were you taught that emotions were ungodly? Because they wanted to disconnect you from your divine antenna. Here's what they don't want you to understand. Emotions are your early warning system. They're your spiritual radar. When something is wrong in the spirit realm, your emotions sound the alarm before your mind can process it. When breakthrough is coming, your emotions sense it before your eyes see it. When danger approaches, Your emotions feel it before your logic grasps it. But they drugged that sensitivity. They shamed that discernment. They convinced you that feeling deeply meant something was wrong with you, when actually, something was right with you. You were functioning exactly as God designed, and they couldn't have that. Think about it. How convenient that an entire generation of chosen ones were taught to medicate their emotions instead of translate them. How perfect that the very people designed to be heaven's early warning system were convinced their alarms were malfunctions. But tonight, we reclaim what was stolen. Your grief? It's not depression. It's your soul mourning a world that's forgotten holiness. Your anxiety? It's not a disorder. It's your spirit detecting the shaking that's coming. Your anger? It's not sin. It's righteous fire responding to a system that's corrupt to its core. When Jesus cleared the temple, was he emotionally unstable? When he called the Pharisees whitewashed tombs, was he having a breakdown? When he wept over Jerusalem, was he being too sensitive? Or was he feeling exactly what the Father felt and responding accordingly? Here's the secret they buried. When aligned with God, your emotions become prophetic. Your fear becomes fire. Your sadness becomes sensitivity. Your anger becomes action. Your joy becomes justice. But when disconnected from source, emotions become chains. That's why they wanted you medicated, not connected. Sedated, not activated. Numbed, not awakened. Because a chosen one who feels freely prays dangerously. They see clearly. They move boldly. They can't be controlled. You've spent decades apologizing for your depth. Decades hiding your intensity. Decades believing the lie that your emotional nature was your weakness, when actually it was your strength. The world told you to numb it. Heaven says listen to it. That restlessness you feel when you're in the wrong place, that's divine guidance. That peace that floods you when you're in alignment, that's heaven's confirmation. That agitation when someone lies to you, that's spiritual discernment. That joy that bubbles up during worship, that's your soul remembering home. Stop apologizing for feeling. Start translating what you feel. Your emotions aren't random chemicals firing in your brain. They're divine communications transmitted to your heart. But just like any language, you need to learn to interpret them correctly. And that can only happen when you stop seeing them as the enemy and start recognizing them as the messenger. Right now, as you're listening to this, what are you feeling? Is there a stirring in your chest, a knowing in your gut, a fire in your bones? That's not excitement about a video. That's your soul recognizing truth. That's your spirit saying, finally, someone understands. You were never broken. You were always awake. They just convinced you to go back to sleep. But the alarm is sounding again. Can you hear it? Not in the world's chaos, but in your chest, in your tears, in that inexplicable knowing that something is shifting, something is coming, something is about to break. Your emotions are broadcasting from the throne room of heaven. The question is, are you listening? Comment emotion is holy right now. Let this moment become your release. Let this be the night you stop apologizing for feeling and start celebrating your divine sensitivity. Because what you're about to discover next will transform not just how you feel, but how you function in the realm of the spirit. The ancient technique that was forbidden is about to make perfect sense. And your emotions are about to become your greatest weapon. Do you feel it? That trembling in your spirit that started weeks ago and won't stop? Do you wake up at 3 a.m. with your heart pounding, knowing something's wrong but unable to name it? Have you been watching the news, seeing the chaos, and wondering why you're the only one who seems terrified while everyone else acts like it's just another Tuesday? Listen to me, chosen one. There is no more delay. What's coming isn't just global, it's personal. And if you think you can coast through this on yesterday's prayers and Sunday morning faith, you're about to discover how wrong you are. The ground beneath our feet isn't just shaking, it's splitting wide open. Not just politically, not just economically, spiritually. The very foundations that held this world together for decades are crumbling like ancient parchment in a fire. And most people, they're sleepwalking through the collapse. But you're not most people, are you? You've felt the weight pressing down on your chest when you try to sleep. You've sensed the darkness gathering like storm clouds on a summer day. Your spirit has been screaming warnings that your mind couldn't understand. That's because you're spiritually sensitive. You're wired to detect what others miss. You're an early warning system wrapped in human flesh. And right now, that system is going off like a fire alarm in the night. The prophet Joel saw this day coming when he wrote, "The earth shakes before them. The heavens tremble. The sun and moon are darkened, and the stars no longer shine." We're living in that verse right now. The signs aren't subtle anymore. They're screaming. Look around you. Mental illness at record highs, suicide rates climbing like a rocket, families torn apart by hatred that came out of nowhere, young people cutting themselves just to feel something real, old people dying alone, forgotten in nursing homes. This isn't just social decay, this is spiritual warfare manifesting in the physical realm. But here's what the church won't tell you, what the preachers are too scared to say out loud. This isn't the end, this is the beginning. This chaos, this collapse, this cosmic shaking, it's not God's punishment, it's God's preparation. He's tearing down everything built on sand, so only what's built on rock remains standing. And you, dear one, you who've been through the fire, you who've been refined in the furnace of suffering, you're built on rock. The strikes that are coming won't just test buildings and governments. They'll test souls. They'll reveal who's truly connected to the source and who's been running on spiritual fumes. The lukewarm will be exposed. The pretenders will crumble. But the aligned, the ones who've learned to hear God's whisper above the world's roar, we rise, not in arrogance, in alignment, not in pride, in power, not because we're better, but because we're broken in the right places. Because we've already walked through valleys so dark we thought the sun would never shine again. Because we've already survived what killed others. You think your depression was random? Your anxiety was just chemical? Your sleepless nights were just stress? No, beloved. You were being trained, stretched, prepared. God was building spiritual muscle in you that you'll need for what's ahead. Daniel knew this truth when he was thrown into the lion's den. The lions didn't eat him not because he was holy, but because he was aligned. His spirit was tuned to heaven's frequency, and heaven's frequency neutralizes hell's attack. That's what this technique does for you. When you place your hands over your eyes and whisper, "I am one with God," you're not just praying, you're aligning. You're tuning your spiritual antenna to heaven's broadcast. You're stepping out of earth's chaos and into heaven's calm. But you have to do it before the storm hits harder. Right now, we're in the eye of the hurricane. There's an eerie calm, a strange quiet. People think the worst is over. They're wrong. We're about to hit the back wall of the storm, and it's going to make what we've already been through look like a gentle rain. The strikes I'm talking about aren't just missiles, though. Those may come. They're not just economic collapse, though, that's accelerating. They're spiritual strikes, attacks on your peace, assaults on your purpose, battles for your very soul. And only those who know how to disappear into God's presence will survive with their sanity intact. You've seen the statistics. Depression medication isn't working anymore. Therapy sessions are booked months in advance. Suicide hotlines can't keep up with the calls. People are drowning in a sea of despair, and the life preservers the world offers are waterlogged and sinking. But you have something they don't. You have access to the control room of the universe. You have a direct line to the throne room of heaven. Not through a priest or a pastor or a program, but through the sacred technique that reconnects your spirit to its source. The ground is cracking beneath systems that seemed unshakable. Governments that appeared permanent are revealing their fragility. Institutions that promised security are showing their true colors. But the chosen ones, we rise, in silence, in clarity, in alignment. Because while the world fights wars with weapons, we fight with worship. While they scramble for survival, we rest in sovereignty. While they panic in the darkness, we walk in divine illumination. The final strikes aren't coming to destroy you, they're coming to reveal you, to strip away everything that isn't eternal and expose the divine gold that's been hidden beneath layers of fear and doubt and worldly distraction. This is your hour, chosen one. Not to hide, but to shine. Not to cower, but to conquer. Not through might or power, but by His Spirit. Comment 777 right now. It's not for luck. It's a signal, a declaration, a prophetic act that says you heard the call, You've aligned with heaven, and you're ready for whatever strikes next. Because when the dust settles and the smoke clears, only those who learn to find God in the silence will still be standing. Why do you think they've been trying to break you your entire life? Why has every system you've encountered, family, work, church, society, felt like a cage designed specifically for your spirit? Why does your very presence make comfortable people uncomfortable? Because you're not supposed to fit. You're not supposed to blend in. You're not supposed to make peace with broken systems. You are the blueprint for something they fear. Listen to me, chosen one. That restlessness you've carried since childhood, that burning in your chest when you see injustice, that inability to stay quiet when everyone else is playing along, that's not a character flaw. That's divine DNA. You carry the frequency of heaven in a world tuned to hell's static. The system didn't reject you by accident. It sensed the threat. You see, there are two types of people in this world, those who adapt to corruption and those who expose it simply by existing. You are the latter. You are a spiritual fracture line, and your presence makes demons squirm. Every broken system in this world, political, religious, social, was designed to survive on one condition: that people like you stay asleep, that you doubt yourself, that you shrink back, that you apologize for the fire in your bones. Because the moment you wake up fully, the moment you stop asking permission to be who God made you, their house of cards collapses. That's why they tried to medicate your sensitivity. Label your discernment as mental illness. Call your passion extremism. They knew if you ever discovered your true identity, their game was over. But here's what they didn't count on. God's blueprint can't be destroyed, only delayed. Scripture tells us in Isaiah 54:17, "No weapon formed against you shall prosper, and every tongue which rises against you in judgment you shall condemn." This isn't just protection, it's revelation. You are not just surviving their attacks. You are designed to dismantle them. Think about this. Why has your bloodline been under assault for generations? Why does mental illness, addiction, financial struggle, and spiritual confusion seem to follow your family tree like a curse? Because hell knows what happens when your lineage fully awakens, when the generational fog lifts, when the spiritual amnesia breaks. Your great-grandmother had the gift, but she was silenced by shame. Your grandfather heard God's voice, but the world convinced him he was crazy. Your parents carried the fire, but religion told them to dim it. Generation after generation, the system worked overtime to keep your family's spiritual DNA dormant. But you're the breakthrough generation. You're the one hell couldn't silence, the one who survived every attempt to program you into compliance, the one who kept questioning when everyone else accepted lies as truth. Do you understand what this means? You're not just saved. You're not just blessed. You are the antivirus in a corrupted world. You are the signal, the strike, the shift. Every time you choose truth over comfort, you crack their foundation. Every time you refuse to bow to their narratives, you expose their weakness. Every time you walk in the authority God gave you, you prove their system is built on sand. This is why they're escalating now. This is why the pressure feels unbearable. Because they know their time is running out. They know people like you are waking up all over the world. And once the blueprint is fully activated, once you remember who you really are, their reign of deception ends. You were never meant to find your place in their world. You were sent to build a new one. In Matthew 16:18, Jesus declared, "I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it." Notice he didn't say hell wouldn't attack. He said it wouldn't prevail. Why? Because the church, the true church, isn't a building or denomination. It's people like you, carriers of divine blueprints, living temples who refuse to be corrupted. You think you're fighting for your own breakthrough? You're fighting for your bloodline's freedom, for your children's inheritance, for a generation that hasn't even been born yet. Every step you take in obedience creates a pathway for others. Every chain you break in your own life shatters it for someone else. This is bigger than your personal comfort. This is bloodline warfare, generational deliverance. You are not just healing yourself, you are healing time itself. The enemy thought if he could just break you, he could keep your entire lineage in bondage. But what he didn't realize is that pressure doesn't break blueprints. It activates them. That pain you've endured, it wasn't punishment, it was preparation. Every betrayal refined your discernment. Every closed door redirected your path. Every silent season taught you to hear God's voice above the noise. You weren't being destroyed. You were being forged into something hell can't duplicate and heaven can't deny. You are not here to join the system. You are here to disrupt it. Not with violence, with truth. Not with anger, with authority. Not with compliance, with conviction. The old world is crumbling, and they know it. But they also know that the new world will be built by people who carry the original blueprint, people who remember who they are, people who refuse to bow, people like you. If you know this truth is for you, comment, "I am the blueprint." Let heaven echo it. Let hell hear it. Let your bloodline feel the earthquake of your awakening. Because once you accept this identity, everything changes, and they can never put you back to sleep again. Do you realize that right now, as you sit there, nations are crumbling while you scroll through social media? Do you understand that empires have fallen because their people forgot how to hear God's voice? Are you awake to the fact that what I'm about to share with you has been used by kings, prophets, and warriors to save entire civilizations from destruction? This isn't history class. This is your lifeline. For 7 decades, heaven kept this technique locked away. Not because God was withholding blessing, but because humanity wasn't ready for this level of power. When Moses climbed Mount Sinai, when Elijah heard the still small voice, when Daniel received visions that shaped kingdoms, they all accessed the same sacred frequency I'm about to give you. But here's what they don't teach in Sunday school. This method was so potent, so immediately transformative, that God had to restrict it. Until now, the spiritual atmosphere has shifted. The enemy's assault on your mind, your family, your nation has reached a tipping point, and heaven has made a decision. What was once forbidden is now commanded, not suggested, commanded. You've been living in fragments, haven't you? Part of you at work, part of you at home, part of you trying to pray, but never feeling whole, never feeling connected. The world taught you to compartmentalize your life, but God designed you for integration, total alignment, complete unity with His frequency. That restlessness you feel at 2 a.m., that's your spirit crying out for the connection it was designed for. That anxiety that no medication can touch, that's your soul starving for divine frequency. You weren't made to live disconnected from your Creator. You were designed as a living antenna, a walking portal, a human bridge between heaven and earth. But the signal got jammed. Listen to what Psalm 46:10 really says, "Be still and know that I am God." The Hebrew word for still is raphahit, means to release, to let go, to surrender completely. This isn't passive relaxation. This is active spiritual warfare. When you become truly still, you're not retreating from battle, you're positioning yourself for divine download. Here's what's happening in America right now while you watch this. Mental health crisis at an all-time high. Suicide rates skyrocketing. Families destroyed. Young people lost, wandering, desperate. Politicians can't fix it. Therapists can't heal it. Medicine can't cure it. Why? Because this is a spiritual famine, a disconnection from source. And the only solution is reconnection. The technique I'm about to share saved Daniel in the lion's den. It gave Joseph interpretation of dreams that preserved Egypt through 7 years of famine. It's how David, a shepherd boy, killed a giant and became king. It's how 3 Hebrew boys walked out of a furnace without even the smell of smoke on their clothes. This isn't metaphor. This is method. God hid this technique because it was too powerful. But now, the chosen have been summoned to carry it. Are you ready? Because once you activate this, there's no going back to spiritual numbness. Once you taste this level of connection, ordinary Christianity will feel like starvation. Here's your instruction. Follow it exactly. Find a quiet space. This isn't about location, it's about intention. You could be in your bedroom, your car, even your office break room. What matters is your heart posture. Place both hands gently over your eyes, not pressing, not forcing, just covering. You're creating sacred darkness, shutting out the visual chaos of this world so your spiritual eyes can open. Now whisper these 4 words. I am one with God. Not shouting, not performing, whispering. Because God doesn't respond to volume, He responds to surrender. Wait, breathe, listen, don't rush this. Don't check your phone. Don't think about your to-do list. This is the most important conversation you'll have today, maybe the most important one you'll have this year. In that darkness, in that silence, in that sacred space, heaven begins to download, not information transformation, not knowledge knowing. Your nervous system calms. Your spiritual frequencies align. The static clears. My dear friend, as we reach the end of this sacred journey together, I want you to remember 3 unshakable truths that will anchor your soul in the storms ahead. First, the technique you've received tonight isn't just another spiritual exercise, it's your direct line to the creator of the universe. When you place those hands over your eyes and whisper, "I am one with God," you're not just speaking words. You're activating a divine frequency that has sustained warriors, prophets, and ordinary believers through their darkest hours. Second, the restlessness in your spirit, the unease in your sleep, the feeling that something massive is approaching. These aren't signs of weakness, they're signs of awakening. You've been chosen to sense what others cannot because God needs watchmen on the walls, intercessors in the gap, voices crying out in the wilderness. Third, what was once forbidden is now not just allowed, it's essential. The spiritual strikes are real. The battle for your mind, your family, your destiny is intensifying. But you are not defenseless. You have been armed with heaven's own weapon. You are not walking this path alone. Right now, across this nation and around the world, there are others who felt the same stirring in their spirit when they heard this message. There are prayer warriors who have been interceding for your breakthrough before they even knew your name. There is a community of the awakened, the chosen, the sealed ones, who are ready to stand with you. God is still working in your life, even when you can't see it, even when you can't feel it, even when the silence seems deafening. He is moving. That delay you've been experiencing, it wasn't abandonment, it was preparation. That wilderness season, it wasn't punishment, it was positioning. Everything has been preparing you for this moment, for this revelation, for this activation. Let me ask you this. If you knew that using this technique just once could shift the entire trajectory of your life, would you still hesitate? If you knew that your obedience could break generational curses and open doors for your children and grandchildren, would you still delay? I want you to comment below right now. Share what you felt during this message. Tell us what shifted in your spirit. Ask questions if you need clarity. Don't let this be a one-way conversation. This community is here to pray with you, to encourage you, to remind you that you are seen, known, and deeply loved. If this message touched your soul, if it awakened something that had been sleeping, please share it. Someone in your life needs to hear this. Someone is drowning in silence, believing they're forgotten, convinced they're too far gone. Your share could be their lifeline. Thank you for staying with me through this entire journey. Your presence here matters more than you know. If you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel because there's so much more God wants to release to His remnant. We're building something together, not just a following, but a family of the awakened. Now, before you go, let me pray over you with the authority that heaven has given me. Father God, I lift up every precious soul who has heard this message tonight. You know their names, you know their struggles, you know the battles they're fighting in secret and the dreams they're afraid to speak out loud. Lord, I pray that you would breathe new life into their weary spirits. Where there has been confusion, bring clarity. Where there has been delay, bring divine acceleration. Where there has been isolation, remind them that they are surrounded by your love and supported by your people. God, activate the technique they've received tonight. Let it become as natural as breathing, as essential as heartbeat. When they place their hands over their eyes, let heaven open. When they whisper, "I am one with you," let every barrier dissolve. Let them feel your presence so powerfully that they never again question their worth, their calling, or your faithfulness. Break every chain that has held them back. Silence every voice that has whispered lies about their identity. Open doors that no man can shut. Give them strategies that bypass the impossible and wisdom that confounds the enemy. Lord, surround them with your divine protection. Let no weapon formed against them prosper. Let every attack on their mind, their family, their destiny backfire and work for their good. Position them as watchmen, as intercessors, as carriers of your glory in this dark hour. And Father, When they feel weak, remind them that your strength is made perfect in their weakness. When they feel alone, let them sense the great cloud of witnesses cheering them on. When they feel forgotten, whisper their name in the secret place and remind them that they are engraved on the palms of your hands. Use them, Lord. Use their surrendered lives to shift atmospheres, to break strongholds, to release your kingdom on earth as it is in heaven. Make them dangerous to darkness and irresistible to your light. In the mighty name of Jesus, I declare that their finest hour is not behind them, it's ahead of them. Their greatest victory is not in their past, it's in their future. And their deepest intimacy with you is not just a memory, it's their destiny. Let them rest tonight in the peace that surpasses understanding, knowing that you who began a good work in them will complete it. Let them wake tomorrow with fresh fire, renewed vision, and unshakable confidence in your love. In Jesus' mighty name, amen. Go in peace, beloved. You are chosen. You are equipped. You are not alone.